Welcome to the Chambers Street Theater. Today we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to be reading from The Wizard of Oz. I'm not going to tell you how it's different yet. I'll tell you at the end of the show how it's different, because by then you'll notice. But it is different than the movie. But we're going to get started now. Each week we read something from the time frame from the 1840s through about 1910. I'm of the opinion that the gold rush brought energy and hope and even money to societies all around the world. And we had a great birthing of creativity from the gold rush. Today we're going to read L. Frank Baum's Wizard of Oz. We're going to start, well, you'll recognize all the characters. They're all in the movie, but just a little different. She was a powerful witch, as well as a wicked one, and she soon made up her mind how to act. There was in her cupboard a golden cap with a circle of diamonds and rubies running round it. This golden cap had a charm. Whoever owned it could call 3 times upon the winged monkeys, who would obey any order they were given. But no person could command these strange creatures more than 3 times. Twice already the wicked witch had used the charm of the cap. Only once more could she use this golden cap. So the wicked witch took the golden cap from her cupboard and placed it upon her head. Then she stood upon her left foot and slowly said, "Ippy, peppy, keki." Next, she stood upon her right foot and said, "Hilo, hello, hello." After this, she stood upon both feet and cried in a loud voice, "Zizzy, zoozy, zeek." Now the charm began to work. The sky was darkened, and the low rumbling sound was heard in the air. There was a rushing of many wings, a great clattering and chattering and laughing, and the sun came out of the dark sky to show the wicked witch surrounded by a crowd of monkeys, each with a pair of immense and powerful wings on his shoulders. One, much bigger than the others, seemed to be the leader. He flew close to the witch and said, "You have called us for the 3rd and last time. What do you command?" "Go to the strangers who are within my land and destroy them all, except the lion," said the wicked witch. "Bring that beast to me, for I have a mind to harness him like a horse and make him work." "Your commands shall be obeyed," said the leader. And then, with a great deal of chattering and noise, the winged monkeys flew away to the place where Dorothy and her friends were walking. Some of the monkeys seized the Tin Woodman and carried him through the air until they were over a country thickly covered with sharp rocks. Here they dropped the poor woodman, who fell a great distance to the rocks, where he lay so battered and dented that he could neither move nor groan. Others of the monkeys caught the scarecrow and with their long fingers pulled all the straw out of his clothes and head. They made his hat and boots and clothes into a small bundle and threw it into the top branches of a tall tree. The remaining monkeys threw pieces of stout rope around the lion and wound many coils about his body and head and legs until he was unable to bite or scratch or struggle in any way. Then they lifted him up and flew away with him to the witch's castle, where he was placed in a small yard with a high fence round it, so that he could not escape. But Dorothy they did not harm at all. She stood with Toto in her arms, watching the sad fate of her comrades and thinking it would soon be her turn. The leader of the winged monkeys flew up to her, his long hairy arms stretched out and his ugly face grinning terribly. But he saw the mark of the good witch's kiss upon her forehead and stopped short, motioning the others not to touch her. "We dare not harm this little girl," he said to them, "for she is protected by the power of good, and that is greater than the power of evil. All we can do is carry her to the castle of the wicked witch and leave her there." So carefully and gently they lifted Dorothy in their arms and carried her swiftly through the air until they came to the castle, where they set her down upon the front doorstep. Then the leader said to the witch, "We have obeyed you as far as we were able. The Tin Woodman and the Scarecrow are destroyed, and the lion is tied up in your yard. The little girl we dare not harm, nor the dog she carries in her arms. Your powers over our band is now ended, and you will never see us again." Then all the winged monkeys, with much laughing and chattering and noise, flew into the air and were soon out of sight. The witch was both surprised and worried when she saw the mark on Dorothy's forehead, for she knew well that neither the winged monkeys nor she herself dare hurt the girl in any way. She looked down at Dorothy's feet, and seeing the silver shoes, began to tremble with fear, for she knew what a terrible charm belonged to them. "Come with me and see that you mind everything I tell you, for if you do not, I will make an end of you, as I did of the Tin Woodman and the Scarecrow." Dorothy followed her through many of the beautiful rooms of her castle until they came to the kitchen, where the witch bade her clean the pots and kettles and sweep the floor and keep the fire fed with wood. Dorothy went to work meekly, with her mind made up to work as hard as she could, for she was glad the wicked witch had decided not to kill her. With Dorothy hard at work, the witch thought she would go into the courtyard and harness the cowardly lion like a horse. It would amuse her. She was sure to make him draw her chariot wherever she wished to drive. But as she opened the gate, the lion gave a loud roar and bounded at her so fiercely that the witch was afraid and ran out and shut the gate again. "If I cannot harness you," said the witch to the lion, speaking through the bars of the gate, "I can starve you. You shall have nothing to eat until you do as I wish." Soon after, she took no food to the imprisoned lion, but every day she came to the gate at noon and asked, "Are you ready to be harnessed like a horse?" And the lion would answer, "No, if you come in this yard, I will bite you." The reason the lion did not have to do as the witch wished was that every night, while the woman was asleep, Dorothy carried him food from the cupboard. After he had eaten, he would lie down on his bed of straw, and Dorothy would lie beside him and put her head on his soft, shaggy mane, while they talked of their troubles and tried to plan some way to escape. Now, the wicked witch had a great longing to have her as her own, the silver shoes, which the girl always wore. Her bees and her crows and her wolves were lying in heaps and drying up, and she had used up all the powers of the golden cap. But if she could only get hold of the silver shoes, they would give her more power than all the other things she had lost. She watched Dorothy very carefully to see if she ever took off her shoes, thinking she might steal them. But the child was so proud of her pretty shoes that she never took them off except at night when she took her bath. The witch was too much afraid of the dark to dare go into Dorothy's room at night to take the shoes, and her dread of water was greater than her fear of the dark, so she never came near when Dorothy was bathing. Indeed, the old witch never touched water, nor ever let water touch her in any way. But the wicked creature was very cunning, and she finally thought of a way, a trick that would give her what she wanted. She placed a bar of iron in the middle of the kitchen floor, and then by her magic arts made the iron invisible to human eyes, so that when Dorothy walked across the floor, she stumbled over the bar, not being able to see it, and fell full length. She was not much hurt, but in her fall, one of the silver shoes came off, and before she could reach it, the witch snatched it away and put it on her own skinny foot. The wicked woman was greatly pleased with the success of her trick, for as long as she had one of the shoes, she owned half of the power of their charm, and Dorothy could not use it against her, even if she had known how to do so. The little girl, seeing she had lost one of her pretty shoes, grew angry and said to the witch, "Give me back my shoe." "I will not," retorted the witch, "for it is now my shoe and not yours." "You are a wicked creature," cried Dorothy. "You have no right to take my shoe from me." "I shall keep it just the same," said the witch, laughing at her, "and someday I shall get the other one from you, too." This made Dorothy so angry that she picked up a bucket of water that stood near and dashed it over the witch, wetting her from head to foot. Instantly, the wicked woman gave a loud cry of fear, and then as Dorothy looked at her in full wonder, the witch began to shrink and fall away. "See what you have done!" she screamed. "In a minute I shall melt away!" "Oh, I'm very sorry indeed," said Dorothy, who was truly frightened to see the witch actually melting away like brown sugar before her very eyes. "Didn't you know water would be the end of me?" asked the witch in a wailing, despairing voice. "Of course not," answered Dorothy. "How should I?" "Well, in a few minutes I shall be all melted, and you will have the castle to yourself. I have been wicked in my day, but I never thought a little girl like you would ever be able to melt me and end my wicked deeds. Look out! Here I go!" With these words, the witch fell down in a brown, melted, shapeless mass and began to spread over the clean boards of the kitchen floor. Seeing that she had really melted away to nothing, Dorothy drew another bucket of water and threw it over the mess. Then she swept it all out the door. After picking up the silver shoe, which was all that was left of the old woman, she cleaned and dried it with a cloth and put it on her foot again. Then, being at last free to do as she chose, she ran out to the courtyard to tell the lion that the wicked witch of the West had come to an end and that they were no longer prisoners in a strange land. The cowardly lion was much pleased to hear that the wicked witch had been melted by a bucket of water, and Dorothy at once unlocked the gate of his prison and set him free. They went in together into the castle, where Dorothy's first act was to call all the Winkies together and tell them they were no longer slaves. There was great rejoicing among the yellow Winkies, for they had been made to work hard during many years for the wicked witch, who had always treated them with great cruelty. They kept this day a holiday then and ever after, and spent the time in feasting and dancing. "If our friends, the Scarecrow and the Tin Woodman, were only with us," said the lion, "I would be happy." "Don't you suppose we could rescue them?" asked the girl anxiously. "We could try," answered the lion. So they called the yellow Winkies and asked them if they would help to rescue their friends. And the Winkies said they would be delighted to do all in their power for Dorothy, who had set them free from bondage. They traveled that day and part of the next until they came to the rocky plain where the Tin Woodman lay, all battered and bent. His axe was near him, but the blade was rusted and the handle broken off short. "Are any of your people tinsmiths?" "Oh, yes, some of us are good tinsmiths," they told her. "Then bring them to me," she said. And when the tinsmiths came, bringing with them all their tools in baskets, she inquired, "Can you straighten out all the dents in the Tin Woodman and bend him back into shape again and solder him together where he is broken?" The tinsmiths looked at the woodman very carefully, then answered that they thought they could mend him and he would be as good as ever. So they set to work in one of the big yellow rooms of the castle and worked for 3 days and 4 nights, hammering and twisting and bending and soldering and polishing and pounding at the legs and body and head of the Tin Woodman, until at last he was straightened out to his old form, and his joints worked as well as ever. To be sure, there were several patches on him, but the tinsmiths did a good job, and as the woodman was not a vain man, he did not mind the patches at all. "If we only had the Scarecrow with us again," said the Tin Woodman. When Dorothy had finished telling him everything that happened, "I should be quite happy." "We must try to find him." So she called the Winkies to help her, and they walked all that day and part of the next until they came to the tall tree, in the branches of which the winged monkeys had tossed the Scarecrow's clothes. It was a very tall tree, and the trunk was so smooth that no one could climb it. But the woodman said at once, "I'll chop it down, and then we'll get the Scarecrow's clothes." As soon as he had spoken, the Tin Woodman began to chop, and in a short time the tree fell over with a crash. When the Scarecrow's clothes fell out of the branches and rolled off into the ground, Dorothy picked them up and had the Winkies carry them back to the castle, where they were stuffed with nice clean straw, and behold, there was the Scarecrow, as good as ever, thanking them over and over again for saving him. "We must get back to Oz and claim his promise." "Yes," said the woodsman, "at last I shall get my heart." "And I shall get my brains," said the Scarecrow. "And I shall get my courage," said the Lion. "And I shall get back to Kansas," cried Dorothy. "Oh, let us start for the Emerald City tomorrow." "Suppose we call the field mice," she suggested. "They could probably tell us the way to the Emerald City." "To be sure they could," cried the Scarecrow. "Why didn't we think of that before?" Dorothy blew the little whistle she had always carried around her neck, since the Queen of the Mice had given it to her. In a few minutes they heard the pattering of tiny feet, and many a small gray mice came running up to her. Among them was the Queen herself, who asked in her squeaky little voice, "What can I do for my friends?" "Can you tell us where the Emerald City is?" "Why don't you use the charm of the cap and call the winged monkeys to you? They will carry you to the city of Oz in less than an hour." "I didn't know there was a charm," answered Dorothy in surprise. "What is it?" "It's written inside the golden cap." Dorothy looked inside the golden cap and saw some words written upon the lining. These, she thought, must be the charm, so she read the directions carefully and put the cap upon her head. "Eppy, peppy, khaki," she said, standing on her left foot. "What did you say?" said the Scarecrow, who did not know what she was doing. "Helo, holo, hello," Dorothy went on, standing this time on her right foot. "Hello," replied the Tin Woodman calmly. "Izzy, woozy, zeek," said Dorothy, who was now standing on both feet. This ended the saying of the charm, and they heard a great clattering and flapping of wings as the band of winged monkeys flew up to them. The king bowed low before Dorothy and asked, "What is your command?" "We wish to go to the Emerald City," said the child, "and we have lost our way." "We will carry you," replied the king. And no sooner had he spoken than two of the monkeys caught Dorothy up in their arms and flew away with her. Others took the Scarecrow and the Woodman and the Lion, and one little monkey seized Toto and flew after them, although the dog tried hard to bite them. As the Monkey King finished his story, Dorothy looked down and saw the green shining walls of the Emerald City before them. She wondered at the rapid flight of the monkeys, but was glad the journey was over. The strange creatures set the travelers down carefully before the gates of the city. The king bowed low to Dorothy and then flew swiftly away, followed by all his band. "That was a good ride," said the little girl. "Yes, and a quick way out of our troubles," replied the Lion. "How lucky it was you brought away that wonderful cap." And that's the end of our story today. Did you notice some of the differences? First of all, in the book, Dorothy had silver slippers, and in the movie, they have ruby red slippers. That's probably the biggest difference. Also, did you notice the lion was caged in a courtyard at the witch's castle? Well, that's not in the book. In the movie. It's in the book. So I recommend that you get the book, The Wizard of Oz, because if you like the movie, and of course I love the movie, you'll also love the book. Many more stories and adventures for all our little friends. When I was a very young child, they used to show The Wizard of Oz once a year on television, and it would start out in black and white, and I would forget almost every year that later it would turn into color. And I'd sit there watching the black and white and say to myself, well, wasn't this in color? And then just as I get used to it being a black and white movie, all of a sudden it bursts into wonderful color. And of course, The Wizard of Oz is a wonderful color movie, and the book is a wonderful read. Well, this is the Chambers Street Theater for today, and we have to thank Alex Silva-Satter and Bryce Parker in the control room for all the wonderful sound effects and flying monkeys. Bye for this week. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.